Let me introduce a validation rule. Validation rule. If I successfully introduce, at least I've demonstrated like one or two formulas, then I want a validation rule that is going to caution my end users, that will not allow them to enter a date in the past. I said it earlier that you use validation rule to impose data quality so that your end users will not enter data that are not good, that you don't want to be on your platform. Because if you allow that, they enter anyhow data, you don't use validation rule to impose data quality, what is going to happen at the end of the day? By the time they go to the by the time it's going to break your project, it's going to break your reports, because you run reports so that your stakeholders to give insights, at the same time to take actionable step toward increasing your company's productivity, to know your efficiency, to know how productive your company is, to really visualize how things are going within the company, what is not going okay, what they need to put in order or in the right perspective. They will be able to put it in the right perspective at the end of the day. That's why you need to call it a data validation, to impose data quality within your platform. So if that happens, it's going to help you to checkmate against entering bad data, because your company is as good as the quality of data your company is working with. Data is the biggest asset of this modern day business. If data is having problem, it's going to give bad information. Even the chat GPT or whatsoever we're talking about today is still based on historical data that has on it. So validation rule is one of the very powerful tool on the Salesforce platform, and you get it you manage it at the object manager level. That's what you do with validation rule. I want to see how we can just work on project validation rule to say to impose data quality. And the one I'm going to work it is end date. End date must not be the date in the past. End date must be date in the future. Let's say you are starting a project tomorrow and somebody is trying to enter a date in the past, saying that your end date for that project is going to be uh, February 3rd, 2024. That is the date in the past. I don't want that kind of data in my system that is going to disrupt my report at the end of the day. That's just a simple example I can give at this point that we can all relate with. We're still going to build a bigger validation rules along the line, along the line, along the line. So, but at least we're building something ourselves. You relate better with it, and you'll be able to do. It's going to stick there, and you don't forget easily. And if you meet anything like that at place of work, you will always navigate it and get the job done, because you know the fundamental thing. Before we start enhancing this, we started from building small or smaller formula. Let me now just go to the I can as well use this space to move to the edit objects, to move to the object manager. I don't necessarily have to go to you see, now I'm going to land on a project. That means I want to edit. I want to impose validation rule. Validation rule is not under feed and relationship. If you want to look for validation rule, you go beyond field and relationship. You go down, uh, you see other action button here, all the other buttons that you have. Then the last one is the validation rule on the project object. I've never built any validation rule before now on my project. Uh, I can call this one end date validation check. Yeah, let me call it end date validation check, and I want to make it active right away. Then I'm also want to, I've explained this to you that if my end date is not blank, my end date is not blank, and that means for the end date is less than today. If my end date is not blank and the end date is not going to be less than today, the person should not be able to save the record. That means the date that is going to be entered into the platform must not be less than today. If I'm going to enter, if my end user is going to enter date, enter a value for end date, it must be date in the future, not the date that is later, that is less than today, or the dates in the past. Definitely, the system must, the validation rule must actually trigger to say, no, you can save this record, try and correct this. And now, this is a validation rule to check. So end date validation check, let me just put it like that. I'm going to use hand as a function that I'm going to use for this. I'm going to use hand. Yes, I'm going to use hand. Let me insert it. Now, my hand involve two logic. It can be up to 2, 3, 4, 5 logic that you can include in this kind of formula. Now I'm going to say the logic 1 is there. Then I want to pull down logic. Let me take this down. Let me take this down. Let me take this down. Then let me pull this logic down. Now let it be inside the two brackets, open and close. This is my logic 1. Then I also want to break this one down, logic 2, based on what I'm going to build. I'm just doing that for my own convenience. It depends on how you can carry on with your logic. So I have two logics that I'm working with. The first logic is that is blank. If the end date is not blank, let's say my end date is not blank. Let me take this one up. My end date is not blank. Let me take something down. Then okay, I need a blank now. I need a blank function to work with this project. But don't just worry, I'm going to explain this project, this formula now. Is blank. Where is this blank? Is blank. Is blank. Where is this blank? I'm looking for this blank. Okay, let me pick it now. Insert. Now it's blank expression that I want to work with. That means I'm saying if my end date is blank, I'm going to still integrate not to it. Don't worry. I'm going to integrate not to it. I will say my end date is blank. If my end date is blank, that's what it's saying now, literally at this point. If my end date is blank, then the expression is that let me look for end date and insert it. Let me look for end date and insert end date. Let me look for end date. Are we following the logic, please? Do we understand how this thing work? Let me close that space and close that space. Now the first logic, the logic 1 now, I'm going to copy this and put it on the logic 1 and say copy. Then I go here and I paste it on this logic. Let me paste it. Yeah, I'm pasting it on this logic. It simply say is blank end date. Is blank end date. This is his blank end date. That means the end date is blank. But I want to say my end date is not blank. That means I need to integrate another function called not into it so that it can now mean my end date is not blank. As it is now, it's saying my end date is blank. That's not what I want. I'm saying my end date is not blank. So if my end date is not blank, that means it contains a value. So let me clear this one first. That if I want to include another function, I must introduce another bracket. That not will actually bring in another bracket into it, so that it's not going to be not then brackets. Whenever you have one bracket, that's how it works in formula and many of the coding. Whenever you have one syntax open bracket, you must also have another syntax closing on the right. One on the left, one. So that means it's going to introduce another sentence here because I integrate not. So you might be doubting, why are we having two brackets? Because the not that is coming into now say if it's blank, if my end date is not blank, because I'm integrating not into this formula to impose the validation rule, I must introduce another bracket. So I don't need this one that I use to build my formula. I need to delete it. Now, into this now, the second logic will simply mean the end date is, if now the truth, the second logic will now be, is saying that that's the second logic now. It simply means the end date is less than today. So that if the end date is less than today, that the person the end date is not blank. Good, understand? And now the end date is less than today, then the system must not allow the person to save it. It must yell red that the end date must be date in the future, so that it will now bring to the end user that is trying to enter a date that is in the past, will now correct his or herself immediately. Sorry, this is the correct date for this thing. That means you've actually used your validation rule to impose a data quality on your platform. Now, I'm going to build a second logic that is going to say end date less than today. That means if the second logic must simply means if the end date is less than today, then it should be this. Now, let me just put that one into the right perspective there. Then let me build it from the scratch. I say end date. Let me insert feed now. End date. Then we go back and demonstrate it. End date. Where's the end date here now? You see the end date. I insert it. End date less than today. Then operator to say less than today. Less than today. Less than today. Less than today. Or then today. Let's look for today. Today is in our all function here. Let me look for today. Today was okay. Today is here. I've seen it just now. Yeah, today. Then let me insert. Okay. Then I copy the second logic now. Then I paste it on this. Then I'm gonna clear. Something is wrong with my formula. I've deleted something. The second this thing for this. Okay. Is everything okay now? Let me check my syntax. Now, what it's simply saying is that my end date is not blank, and at the same time, the person, if my end date is not blank, if somebody is going to enter the end date, it must not be less than today. Because if it is less than today, the person is not going to be able to save the record. That's what it means. Let me check the syntax. It is an error. No error found. That means we're good. Everything is in order. So if there is an error, it will say there is an error. I'm trying to take my time because this area is a bit technical. And if they want to employ you as a Salesforce administrator, they believe you must be able to build have some knowledge about formula building. And then actually it's not in the exam guide, but if I don't demonstrate it to you, I'm not doing you any good. Then I say error message. Let the error message be the end date, end date, date for the project must be must be a date in the future. Yeah, future. Then I now click save. Now, where do I want this error message? Top of the page or on the field? Should it be on the field or top of the page? I want it to be on the end date field so that it will show there so that the end user that want to save that record will be able to see the error. So this thing that I've written here now will now be the message. Then what is the field? So the field is the end date. End date. End date is the field, it's not account. If you say account is going to be showing on the account, it's the end date. Then I'm going to click save. You can see now we build our condition formula, everything is in order. Then I can now go back to my front end to demonstrate it, how it's going to be with my end users. Then I go to the projects and say new projects. Then try to create new projects and see how maybe our validation rule is working. Let me make my end date to be date in the past. Let's say 1st of February, 1st of February 2024. That is the date in the past. Then my normal start date should be the date in the future. So that the start date, let's say tomorrow. Then the start date can be past, can be now, but the end date cannot be in the past. Project name now. Let's say project 3. Project 3. Project 3. The project manager. Let me say Jack Rich. If Jack Rich is the project manager, estimated hour, let's say 500. Actual hours 345. Accounts is a master detail relationship. Let me say now this time around is KJB LLC. If it's KJB LLC, then estimated cost, let's say is 587,000, 29,000. Then actual cost is equal to, let's say, 450. Then Then priority, let's say, is 1. Anyway, contingency, if I like, I can say contingency should not be much. Then email address, I don't need that one for now. I say users testing. Any other ones? Nothing. Everything is okay. Let me save. It won't allow me to save. Can you see? End date. I didn't write the project. End date for the project. Sorry, I omitted it when I was writing, but we should understand now. End date for the project must be a date in the future. I can't save it unless now if somebody is trying to make this mistake among your end users, immediately this will now reawaken their consciousness that no, you can't save a date in the past as your end date. Then they will make the correction immediately. That is the practical demonstration of how validation rule impose data quality on your Salesforce platform. You're doing all this configuration now to ensure data quality within your platform. And like this thing is becoming too vertical. I'm also going to go to the page layout to readjust it so that some of this will come to this right side so that it can be almost equal both left and right. I think we are making good progress. Let me change it now. I made the correction to make it to be a date in the future. We end date should now be a date in the future. I can now say 2023, 233. You can say now, I'll be able to save it. You can say comfortably, I've saved the record into the system. We are the one building this, making this happen. It has never existed on Salesforce platform or Salesforce software before. We are building this custom object, giving it all this field, putting in, integrating validation role into it at the same time, inputting formula into it, and it's working before our eyes. That means we're doing it something cool, we're doing something wonderful. So that then whenever you are building validation rule, you always integrate formula into it. You can't escape it. So pay attention so well into formula. You need to master the art of formula building, building formulas, validation rule, and flow. When we get to flow, we're going to do practical project like this as well. That's going to really demonstrate our expertise as a Salesforce administrator because you need to build an automation tool called flow to do so many things that people need to do mechanically to enter or input. When you build formula, either screen flow, when you build flow, either screen flow or auto flow, definitely it's going to do something for you that can take a longer time for your end users to do. So many things you can use flow to do. Even all these objects we are building, Flow can build it for us. Imagine that a very handy tool like that can get things done for us. And many of employers, they want you to be very sound in formula. They want you to be very sound in flow building. And I'm trying to do my best to simplify it for you to make you love building formula, building validation rules, and doing so many things like that so that you continue to work around it at the end of the day. It will help you to land a lucrative job and it will help you to navigate and be able to solve many problems within your organization. So don't be that administrator that is running away in building formulas or in building validation rules or a kind of building flow. Flow you can't do without it. You must know how to build flow and know how to do it so well. So these are very simple things when you know the basic rules or you know what you want to achieve before you build anything at all. It looks so simple now that we all can relate with it because we know why we're building what we're trying to build and what we want to achieve and at the end of the day.
Right, that's a wrap up for today's video. I hope you have picked up some valuable insights and actionable tips in Salesforce ecosystem. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Give this video a big thumb up. If you found it helpful, I'm Asikola Oshirikan and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.